Judy, we're at the Visitors Center here in Port Gibson. Tell us a little bit about the history of Port Gibson.
Port Gibson is the third oldest incorporated town in the state of Mississippi. It was founded by Samuel Gibson. He had several brothers that came to this area. One was Tobias Gibson that started the Methodist Church, especially the ones around the Vicksburg area. Samuel settled this area. The original part of the town is up almost at the end of Main Street when he had a trading post there, and certain times of the year, the river, the Bayou Pierre, was navigable, so barges could come up and go down and take wares down out to the river and up and down the Mississippi River. And then he had a house out there too. And when that home burned, he built the house that you're standing in now. This is his second home, built about 1805, according to Archives and History. And then I apologize, this is his third home. His second home, a larger wood frame home, also burned. And then he built this home. And it has 4 rooms, 2 here, 2 upstairs, with an outdoor staircase, because at one time it was taxable if you had doors on rooms, and they were even staircases, and so they were considered rooms and therefore taxable. So.
Wow. Now, we should point out that at that time, during that time, fires it could easily be done because of the situation.
Indoor cooking and some outdoor cooking. We have an original outbuilding here with us also. Archives and History said they thought it was either an office for Samuel Gibson or a weaving room, because there's no signs of cooking, no smoke of any kind in that building. So that's another reason why.
You know, when people stop into a visitor's center, they're looking for information. You got tons and tons of brochures and rack cards and so forth, but boy, it's really nice when the person behind the desks can tell you about things you should not miss, because many people who do come in maybe don't have as much time as they'd like to spend, so they want to see the highlights. If I was somebody coming in, tell me the highlights of Port Gibson.
I think driving down the main street itself is very interesting. Most of the homes and churches on what we call Church Street now, it used to be called Cotton Street, but now it is Church Street, are listed on the National Register of Historic Places, either because they're architecturally unique or antebellum. This was the first multi-resource district ever listed on the National Register. We have 2 magnificent churches, one St. Joseph's Catholic Church, the oldest one in town, built in 1849, that is unlocked for tour most of the time, and then the famous pink color Presbyterian Church, the one that's world known for the 10-foot gold hand that sits on top of it. That church has the chandeliers from the steamboat Robert E. Lee and the original slave gallery across the back of it. The Catholic Church is known for its magnificent hand-carved communion rail in it, done by a 17-year-old boy, Daniel Foley. He also carved the original wooden hand on top of the Presbyterian Church. That hand, unfortunately, was damaged by lightning strikes, woodpeckers, and wood rot. And so about 1900, I believe it was, a metal hand went up, almost in the same shape, I was told. I'm not sure, wasn't here in 1900. So anyway, but that metal hand is up, and it was brought down in 1990 and restored and re-gilded and put back up again. So we have some wonderful churches here that you can visit. All the homes and churches have green signs in front of them, and that'll give you a brief history of them and their importance in our community.
I am glad you mentioned how big that hand is, because from the street level, you can't really tell how large it is.
Well, my understanding is the hand is 10 foot 4 inches tall, and the index finger is 5 foot tall.
Okay, and it looks like it might have to come down again for some repair.
Maybe so, maybe so.
It's out there in the weather all the time.
That's correct, it certainly is.
Now you have, of course, a wealth of military information here around Port Gibson. This was a very active place for General Grant and his troops.
This was his... He landed here at what is known as Windsor, at the old town of Bruinsburg. He had a march route that came through town. Part of his troops split, to my understanding. Some of them went by Windsor, some went up what we now call the Schaefer Road, and went past the Schaefer house where the first shots were fired. And then he came into town. And one of the legends I've heard from some of the old timers, I'm not a native of Mississippi nor Claiborne County, and one of the legends I heard was when Grant came up that hill, he saw the gold hand on top of the Presbyterian church, and that was one reason he said the town was too beautiful to burn. The other story I heard from another old timer was that at one time the town had a lot of chinaberry trees, and when the berries were in bloom, or whatever you want to say, they looked like crystal, and when the sun shone on them, it just looked like everything was sparkling. But anyway, he left the little town intact. His troops bivouacked at what is now called the Inglesing home on the corner of Walnut and Church Street. And that home has the first formal gardens ever laid out in the state of Mississippi. So we also have Grand Gulf Military Park, where Grant tried to land his troops and could not because the Grand Gulf had the upper ground and he was down, but he did successfully land at Bruinsburg. He went down the Louisiana side of the river, from what I was told by the old-timers, and came across after he ran into a freed slave that said, "I know a way to get you over there," and he brought them up the Bayou Pierre to Bruinsburg, and that's where they came up to Bruinsburg and then came into town.
We have some unique homes here in town. Idlewild.
A beautiful home. Idlewild is known for its 12-foot doors and windows, and from the front porch, Henry Clay made an appeal to become President of the United States.
And that home is open to tours.
It is now open for tours. It is being restored lovingly by the Davis family, and we're very fortunate they're willing to do that for us.
The town is very quiet. I mean, and there was not a whole lot of activity, and I would assume a lot of northerners who want to come down and find a place for the winter months certainly can find something here at Port Gibson.
Oh, absolutely. We have some lovely homes and little apartments that are available for rent, etc. So yes, they can do things like that. We call them snowbirds.
And we should point out, as far as the visitor center, that you have plenty of pamphlets and information depending upon what people want to do and what their interests are.
We try to provide as much as we can. Sometimes due to funding, we don't have as much as we would like to have, and so we're trying to do, like I said, the best that we can with what we have.
Judy, this is your opportunity to invite people. I know that you're very passionate about this position that you have here at the Visitor Center, and it's good to have somebody who's a know-it-all, if I can say that. But in any case, I know you invite people to come.
We would love to have you come and visit our town. We're halfway between Vicksburg and Natchez, the two most interesting spots along the Mississippi River. As far as history is concerned, Natchez is the oldest town on the river in this area, and then Vicksburg, of course, for all of its military history. So please come by and visit us. You're almost a captive audience if you're going from Vicksburg to Natchez or Natchez to Vicksburg. So take an extra minute and stop and see the third oldest incorporated town in the state of Mississippi.